I'm Delta, and today I'm joined by Gmeiners. Together we explore Destiny's Endgame. So, how did you get into Destiny?
Okay, so I started Destiny. I used to play a bunch of PS4 games. I was big into PS4 and I got it when it came out, but there wasn't like that many releases. So I think it was my sophomore year of high school. I saw a bunch of buddies playing Destiny, and I knew that that was like the main PS4 release. It was like, I don't know, some like $300 million, like a huge budgeted game, but it wasn't really my style. So I'd always
Hmm.
played just kind of like COD and those basic games. And I saw my buddies grinding it for like a week, and that's all they were playing. So then week two, I decided to get into it, and then I was kind of hooked ever since.
So, what got you hooked into Destiny exactly? Like, was
Dude,
it
it's a
the
weird.
gameplay or like speedruns or something that mainly hooked you? Like from
Well,
YouTube?
okay, so when I started, I was really bad. I was not very good at the game, and I didn't really understand the premise of like um PvE games. Like I said, I just
Hmm.
like had played COD and things like that. Just very
Hmm.
like basic entry level games. So I think the thing that drew me in was it was just something I hadn't really experienced before. And then also with D1, which I think is very different to D2 nowadays,
Oh yeah,
the loot
very
chase
different.
was like the loot chase was insane. You would go and you would grind and you'd get like a legendary or even exotic engram, and then you'd go decrypt it, and you didn't even have a chance sometimes of getting an exotic, even with an exotic engram. So
Hmm.
I feel like the loot chase was just really cool. And then I always just had something that I was going for, and you didn't get things too often either. So it was just kind of like experiencing this new game, getting into playing with like friends, doing raids and dungeons, and then also always having something that I could grind towards earning.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that about Destiny 1 because sometimes you could decrypt an exotic and just get a blue, and then you're like, oh, I got this
Yeah.
exotic, and it
Well,
took me like 4 hours.
did you play a lot of D1?
Yeah, I did. Not as much as I played Destiny 2, but I did play
Yeah.
quite a bit of D1. And then
Yeah,
I
because the
switched over to
D1.
Dark Souls.
Okay,
Like,
Dark Souls is probably a better
af-
game than D1.
after the April update on Destiny 1, I switched over to like Dark Souls 2 and played the PvP in that for a bit until Destiny 2's release. So I didn't play
Okay.
much of
What?
House or Rise of Iron.
Oh, Rise. Okay, okay. I haven't done Rise of Iron either. I still need to like. I'm praying that Wrath comes out. Although people are saying like with the leaks that it's not going to be Wrath or something, but I still need to do it. So hopefully that comes out.
Me too. All right. So, when build crafting, what resources do you use to plan out your builds? Because I know your channel centers around build crafting mainly.
Yeah, so I guess the main resource that I use, I obviously use them a lot just to like, I don't know, micromanage builds, pull things over. I think
Hmm.
for me, the main like big important piece is getting sure I get like the information right, the values, and then also understand how things work. So I use a lot of the D2 data compendium, which is
Hmm.
isn't really even a site. It's just the
The
spreadsheet.
Excel sheet,
And
yeah.
yeah. So I just use that. It usually has really good up to date values and information, and
Hmm.
to me, that's more important because I'll see a lot. Like I see a lot of people put together builds and they say run 2 or 3 copies of this mod because it gives you the best effect. But after one copy, you might get like 10%, and then the
Hmm.
second copy gives you another like 2%, and then the third gives you 1%. So like from that level, I just want to always make sure I'm
Hmm.
putting things together that make sense and I'm not like overlooking stuff. But other
Yeah.
than that, it's just playing the game.
Hmm. Like momentum transfer, I was looking at that for making a Sunbracer build, and it caps out at two
Oh yeah.
mods in PvE. So when I was making builds, I saw some people run three momentum transfers, and I was like, "You're not getting any extra benefit from that."
Yeah. I mean, which sucks to see. It would actually be pretty cool to
Hmm.
have all those mods like stack, but yeah.
I think it would be cool to see some of that information in game as well.
Dude, see,
Personally,
I've been saying that for so long, but I don't know.
now
I
when it
feel
comes
like
to
people would be afraid of it though.
yeah, 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 yeah. I feel like it would be like, oh, so many numbers. What do I do with all of them?
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to build crafting, what is your favorite class to build craft for?
Okay, so I play a lot of Warlock. Warlock is my
Hmm.
main one. I think most people who like watch my videos will kind of can tell I'm a Warlock main, but I would say my favorite to build craft for is probably the class I played the least, which is Titan. It's just like Titan doesn't always have the best builds. So whenever I can make a Titan build that fits well, goes well together, it feels kind of like rewarding. I had one build I put out, which was we actually kind of copied it from Salt and Vendetta. They were running GM speeds and we were doing it too. But it was just a
Hmm.
cool build because like it felt awesome putting everything together where it was perfect for the GM we were doing. I think it was the what's the one with the screaming like wizard at the end? You know what that is?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. There's like
It's
three of them.
Navoda.
Oh, Omnigul Strike remade. Um,
Yeah. What is? Do you remember what
yeah.
it's called? It's like the Defiled. Is that it?
Is it? I have Destiny pulled up. One second. I will open my
Something
directory.
like that. I swear, I think it's like the. But anyway, the first room we had to kill like overload
Disgraced.
servitors. So like disgrace. That's what it is. I knew it was something like Defiled. So anyway, we put that build together for Titan, and I made a video on it eventually, and it was just cool because like you put something together for a class that I typically don't play, and it just worked perfectly for what we needed. So for me, I get a lot of like what's it called satisfaction out of making solid Titan builds.
Okay. I honestly didn't expect that. I figured like a Warlock answer
For
because
yeah,
like a lot of people play Warlock and especially endgame players play Warlock because it's just so much more like overwhelmingly better than all the other
yeah.
classes. It can do the speed, it can do the damage, it can do survivability. It just matches all categories that other
Well, that
classes try to meet.
that's the hard part for me on Warlocks because like, and you do a lot of speed stuff too, so I feel
Yeah.
like it's always with Warlock. It's eager edge. Make sure you have well. Make sure you have Ikdash. Sometimes if you need it, heat rises. But other
Mhm.
than that, like it's sometimes when I make those Warlock builds, I'm just like I know that I won't use them because I can just throw on something like Forbearance or a Trace Rifle or whatever else and just add clear way better. So it's kind of like I don't
It's
know.
the same cookie cutter build. Like
Yeah,
you have to just do the same thing anywhere.
yeah. And I know there's just better stuff to run anyway, but
Hmm. So, when looking at the state of the game, what would be your best meta that you would want ideally in the game?
that's a hard question I feel like to answer because like
Hmm.
I just made a video on actually on the meta and was talking mainly about like things like forbearance and how I thought it was kind of a little overpowered in terms of like you can just shoot one line down and clear like an entire wave of ads.
Hmm.
Um that kind of got me in a discussion of like maybe seeing double special go away and things like that, which is kind of like it sounds polarizing because I think double special is really cool, but I
Hmm.
think we've also gotten to the point where the game is just like way too easy. Running something like a primary is just not ever needed anymore. So it's your diversity's kind of gone down the drain with like loadout variability and stuff like that. So I think a solid meta that I'd like to see is just like making somehow primaries more worth running, making double special still a thing, but like more high risk, high reward, need to know how to optimize it fully and make sure it's perfect for the encounter you're doing rather than just have double special work everywhere.
Hmm.
And then, what's it called? A heavy weapon. I know that sounds pretty vague because that's like how the game works or is supposed to work. But
Yeah.
with the meta recently, I've always just thought back to like Shadowkeep time, where I know a lot of people complained about Mountaintop and Recluse, but even with that like time, it just felt like a solid loadout. Even though Mountaintop and Recluse were like extremely overused, I liked that loadout system where you had, your primary was for ad clear, you'd use your special for taking out tankier enemies, sometimes boss damage,
Hmm.
and then you'd have your heavy for like actual boss phases and stuff. Um, and then with that goes along with not having all of the 3.0 builds that one shot bosses and do all types of stuff. But I feel
Yeah.
like that's going to be hard to nerf.
So you want to see more primary focus, basically, like
I
get them
mean,
back
I
in
you could
sort
say
of the
that. It sounds
spotlight.
weird when you say it. Like it sounds weird if you say just primary focus because
Hmm.
I just want like I guess balance in the sandbox and things to. I still want things to be useful in terms of like your
Hmm.
abilities too, but I don't know. Going around and like meleeing a dude, like snap meleeing on lock and then spamming grenades, it's fun, but I don't think it should be like the end all be all of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's totally true. I feel like double special is fun in certain settings, but primaries definitely need a little bit more light and the abilities need to be toned a bit better. Because right
Yeah,
now, I feel like we're still in that ability spam double special meta right now,
yeah,
even with the
but it's
nerf to Starfire and stuff.
yeah, and I mean it's weird too because like people love double. I think people loved double special because obviously I think when D2 came out, you were locked to two primaries, right? Is that
Yeah, you
accurate?
were. You were locked to
Because you
two
were locked into
primaries,
primaries.
and then shotguns, snipers, and all that was locked into the
Yeah,
heavy slot.
we're heavy. So I think when like that's obviously way worse because I don't think you should have locked loadouts. That's terrible. But it's just like I don't. It's hard to balance it because I thought double special was really cool because it was like
Hmm.
high risk, high reward. You needed to know how to use it and to generate ammo effectively. But now you can just do infinite special finishers and all types of stuff. So I don't
Hmm.
know.
So what do you want to see from Bungie over the next year? We're coming to the end of this season. Um, Season of Defiance, right? I can't remember. I stopped
Yeah, I think it's season
like
defiance. Yeah.
focusing on it for a bit. But what do you want to see from Bungie over the next year?
That's a hard question. That's a very hard question. I mean, from like I'd say from the dev team, I'd love to see more transparency. I know they have that Twitter account that they try and interact more with us, but I'd love to just kind of understand where they're coming at from the decision standpoint to make certain changes, buffs and nerfs, like the 2 second change for when you swap and you can't shoot for 2 seconds. I'd like to know more
Hmm.
of like I'd like to see more transparency with their behind the scenes process so that we as like consumers of the game kind of understand where they're coming from. From a content standpoint, I'd love to see them implement. I don't think it'll ever happen this season or multiple seasons after, but I'd love an infinite like kind of horde mode where you can just go in, level up weapons, do whatever else you want to do, test out builds, and go against like increasingly higher difficult enemies, and then see how
So
far you can get, stuff like that.
kind of like a zombies map, kind of
Yeah,
in
I
a
mean,
way.
I think zombies is a great game mode. I
Hmm.
think it would work well. I think it'd be even good if you could like go in with your preset build and preset loadout, or if you went in with like nothing and you had a starter weapon, like you start with Kvastov or Traveler's Chosen and then like
Hmm.
level up. I think it would be fun. I think it'd be decently easy to implement, but I don't know if it's their style.
I honestly don't know if it's their style either, but I feel like that would be awesome. Maybe like in place of Gambit, that's what it is. Like it's called like Gambit Jailbreak, and like you have a bunch
Image.
of enemies that you have to like fight off because they broke out of like Drifter's containment or something. That would
Yeah.
be cool. That's like just theory craft right off the head right there.
Yeah, I dude, that's the thing that makes me mad because I don't think there's always a content drought, and I don't think it's that hard to come up with like pretty cool ideas that would last long. So like
Hmm.
Infinite Horde is obviously like you can have an entire season where you're just messing around in that. And I will say another thing that would be cool. I don't know if you've seen like the Fortnite Unreal Engine type stuff where you can like make your own maps now. I
Hmm.
feel like that in the world of Destiny would be amazing too because I really like how Destiny plays, but obviously they can't make an infinite amount of content. So if they gave that and delegated it to like the player base where we
Hmm.
could make custom maps, I think that'd be sick too.
That would also really help them because they could add like a featured map for trials or something too, where they are like, well, this person made this map. It's pretty cool. This is going to be the trials map this week or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of like Forge in Halo.
Yeah, exactly. Forge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Forge is like a perfect example.
I think that would be something great. I've been asking for that, like, and just talking about that since I think Vault of Glass's release in Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Because I
I
always thought that
my
was
thing is
really
like
cool.
I don't know how hard that would be to implement too. Because I
Hmm.
if they did do that, I think they'd have to like literally delete an entire DLC and actually just like put teams on that. But it would be cool.
It would be. So, going off of what you wanted to see from Bungie over the next year, what did Bungie do that you liked this year so far?
What did Bungie do that I liked this year so far? Interesting. Um, well, I'll say this: like, usually I'm a bit more pessimistic towards Bungie, so I'm
Hmm.
very happy that they did not nerf skating or most of the movement text of any kind. Um, very happy that didn't come with Lightfall because I was expecting it,
A lot
and
of
then
us
to see,
were.
yeah,
So many
well, that's the
people
thing. Like,
were.
I expected them to be like, "Hey, we made this cool stuff. We're gonna force you to use it." So I was glad they didn't do that. Um, but yeah, other than
Yeah.
that, I feel like it's a hard question to answer. It's hard to think back of like, damn, Bungie did this. Oh, I'll say this: Avalon as like a mission was super cool to just see randomly pop up one day. I'm
Hmm.
glad they did another like hidden slash secret story mission
Like
that you can
Whisper.
go in and have replayability. Yeah,
Yeah. That was good. I liked that. when I first saw it, I was like scrolling through YouTube and I was like, "What? There's a new mission?" And then I sat there and was like, "Okay, I'll go do it." And then at the start, I was confused on where to go because I went to the right spot and I was like, "The door isn't open. It's telling me to go here." So I'm like looping around in circles and I'm like, "I did something. The door's open." Because I was just completely
Dude, we
confused on where to go.
yeah, we were online. I don't even remember how I was working on like a video and somebody just like DM me and they're like, "Yo, secret mission." And I was like, "Really? Like now? Like I'm in the middle of like working on stuff." But I was like, "All right, whatever." So it was cool to just like be able to do that when it came out, but
It really is. It's something else when you find a secret that Bungie's planted for you guys, and like it's just an amazing feeling. Like, oh, I found this secret mission, and then everyone is like, oh my god, there's a secret mission. And I thought it
yeah,
was cool that
it's
it was linked to the strike with Brachion, and you got to see that whole Vex River that Asher Mir was talking about.
also I knew that it was because it reminded me of like the Pyramidian strike or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So did it like connect lore wise? Because I never follow the lore in this game.
Supposedly it did. I didn't follow it completely, but there was
Okay.
a dialogue line that Asher Mir said where he was like, "There's a pool of radiolarian fluid," and your ghost is like, "No, there's a hole," and you just jump down and you go fight the boss.
Okay. Okay. Actually, thinking about your question, I will also say, um, something Bungie's started to do a lot more of is like just a lot of those like tinier quality of life updates. I'm a really big fan of the new build system in terms of like making everything uniform because I kind
Mm-hmm.
of hated like trying to make an optimized min max build or whatever. So now having like a cool system that's like consistent is good, even though we lost a lot of mods. What they're doing with like power next season and not increasing the power cap, I think that's a great quality of life change. So I like a lot of those like tinier things that are starting to add up and make the game feel pretty fresh.
Yeah, that I honestly I like that they've simplified build crafting a lot more. We don't have
Yeah,
the solar arc, void, stasis, and we would have had strand if they kept it up. But
yeah,
that we have what we have right now, I feel like it's simplified, but it's still good to build with. We can work
yeah.
around
And
whatever they have.
I think they're adding what? Like, is it like 2 or 3 new mods next season? So if they keep doing that like each season, I think we'll start to get to the complexity that we had before too.
Mm-hmm. I like the complexity. I just didn't like having to switch between different elemental types to make my
Dude,
build what it could
the
be.
affinities drove me insane. It's awful.
They
It's
really
awful.
did. Because you'd be like, all right, I need a void piece here, I need a solar piece here, arc, and you just
Right.
finally made the build.
And then you'd make your build, and then you'd want to edit it, and you're changing like an arc mod for a solar mod, and you're just like, dude. And then if that's exotic, you're spending golf balls. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. All right. A touchy one. What was your thoughts on this last day one? Was it too easy, or was it too hard, or was it just the right amount of difficulty?
I think the obvious answer was it was just way too easy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I mean obviously there's been a trend line of like raids getting easier, starting with like Val. I think Val was a pretty hard day one for a lot of teams. My team did terrible for Val included.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the trend line and like mechanical difficulty started like with that one in the terms of like you go into first encounter, you learn pretty much the entire main mechanic that's going to be in the raid, and then second, third, and fourth encounters are very slight variations on that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the same exact thing was true for Root of Nightmares. You go in, you learn about the nodes, about disrupting, um, anything else that there might be, like extending wipe timers, stuff like that. And then once you have that down, you do it the second encounter and the final encounter as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think from like a mechanical standpoint, they need to start upping the difficulty so that new encounters are introducing new elements, upwards of like half of it being new or more. And then
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, I think everybody would agree, just like the general difficulty of the raid from like a health bar standpoint of the bosses, ad density, survivability that we have now, how much we've been power crapped, like it was just way too easy with all that considered as well.
Yeah, it was kind of a pushover. The enemies didn't feel as tanky. The bosses were getting two phased and even one phased on day one or day two. I
Yeah.
can't remember. but it was on contest mode and trios were being done. It was just insane.
Solos were being done. I'm all
Mm-hmm.
for those low mans, but I think myself and most other people would much rather a raid come out that is not even trioable if it introduces that like difficulty via day
Oh yeah.
one and mechanics and stuff like that.
Spire of Stars, great example because you couldn't low man that because of the plate mechanics at Valcor and Phase 1. You had to have 4 people on the plates.
Was 4 people the lowest you could do it with? I never did low mans back then.
Uh, no, you would have to do it with 5 because you needed 4 on the plates.
Oh, gee. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was literally the minimum amount you could have done it with. But there was a bug on Raid Report where if you didn't kill any enemies, you could get a trio tag.
solid. Solid. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that one would piss me off if it was just like plates that you had to stand on for 4 or 5 people, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think the point still stands. Like if you, dude, if there was like, I mean, if you take like DSC for example, and instead of like
Mm-hmm.
operator, scanner, suppressor, and you had like 6 of those where everybody had to be doing something, even with like some trickery and swapping, you might be
Mm-hmm.
able to get that down to like 4 or 3 people, but be a lot more engaging, I think.
I feel like they need to have more of a mechanic focus because right now it seems like they want more people just being on ad clear and then some guy to just swoop in and save the day and clear all the rest of the raid for them.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
that's
for the
what Root and
casuals, I
Nightmare
guess that's
was.
fair, but
Yeah,
yeah, Root's literally a duo and 4 ad
yeah.
clear rolls. Yeah.
The whole raid, you only need 2 people. And maybe
Yeah.
planets, you need 4, but even then you could solo bottoms and tops. But in general, it was mainly most people on ad clear.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the part two, oh,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
God.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like the thing to take into account too is like I think the last raid before that, other than VOG, which was D1, but the prior one to that was DSC that you could duo. And like
Mm-hmm.
that took, I think, months, if not weeks, of just like theory crafting and stuff. Like Root of Nightmares, we walked into duo right after contest ended and we knew everything to do because it was just like it's straightforward. There's only 2 people, that low man didn't require you to be any bit of creative and bypass mechanics. It was just straight up 2 people can do the raid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the worst part about it is that it was just so easy to low man as soon as contest got dropped.
Yeah.
And I wish it was a bit harder, but I also like the raid because of how fast paced it was for like people who are into speeds. You just speed, world line skate, sword
Yeah.
skate, the whole raid. We had 2 people on final encounter on eager edge, not doing damage really, and we four
For day
man
one.
2 phased. Yeah,
Okay.
like
Yeah,
that's
dude,
how cookie cutter easy it was.
that's a hard thing to balance because I agree with you. Like for that and for any reclears you're doing, I don't want like a King's Fall raid where I'm going in swapping different damage loadouts each and every time. Like I want to go in and it be kind of just brain numbing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's hard to have that be the case and then also have a difficult day one, if that makes sense.
I want more mechanic focus and like chunkier bosses, not like super chunky where we have to 4
Right.
phase, but like good enough to where we have to like 3 and sometimes 4 phase maybe if we mess up a damage phase. Like I want there to be risk and
Exactly.
challenge. I don't want it to be like a War Priest challenge mode where the timer was buggy and weird. But
You had to be frame perfect. Yeah.
yeah, I want a little bit challenge in that. Now, for that day one, what was the hardest part for your team en route?
The hardest part, I'll say the hardest part for us, even though we probably didn't spend the longest time there, was second encounter. I think most teams that were like competitive probably cleared second encounter in like 25 to 35 minutes. Us, I think it took us an hour and like 15, um, which sucked because that made us fall behind. And we got
Mm-hmm.
first encounter done in like 15 minutes. So that was extremely good pace.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that sucked for us there was we never learned about the disruption mechanic. So we went into second encounter thinking like the shielded guys might be disrupting or other things were happening. And the
Mm-hmm.
disruptions were also very inconsistent. So that kind of sucked for us. We should have done a way better job at just like taking a step back and saying, all right, we don't understand what's like disrupting things. Let's take it case by case. But I think we just rushed into it thinking we were on really good pace. And by the time we realized we were kind of messing things up, we were kind of down mentally. And
Hmm.
then I will say with that, we also, I don't know if you guys ran into this day one. We got soft lock, I think 2 or 3 times
We
when
got
trying to go
soft
up the
locked
floors.
once, and then after the soft lock, we just wiped and did it again. We tried to push
Okay.
everything off, but the boss
Yeah.
respawned. We got
Yeah.
everything
So yeah, that
except for
like
the
final
major.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened too. And that sucked because it was just like, you can't really do anything about the soft locks, and just having those
Hmm.
like sprinkled in here and there when you're already down in the dumps, it wasn't ideal. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest one for us for sure.
Yeah. For me and my team, it was definitely third encounter. We had it the first go around where we were just like, we just swapped the planets to the correct colors.
Oh,
And
okay.
then after we swapped them and they said the index planets revealed themselves, we were like, okay, what do we do now? And then we wiped, and then we just were like, okay, maybe that's not it. What do we do? So then we sat like sitting there with open, and we were like, well, what if you had to swap the two planets that are wrong and flip them over, do like the challenge, I think it is. Haven't done third challenge
Oh,
yet,
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but we were like, maybe we do that, and they were like, no, maybe. And then I was like, we're making this difficult on ourselves. We were clearly going in the right path. Let's just go back to doing what we were doing and figure out what's next. And then we completed third encounter.
Yeah, dude, that's hard. That sucks in
Mm-hmm.
day ones because it's like, because you could be right. You could be doing something wrong, and you know what I mean? Or something could happen, something could bug out. The game gives you a piece of information. And if you're like early in the encounter, I mean, the best thing is always to just like keep trying new ideas. So if something happens and it looks like something right was wrong, you can just bypass it as like the mechanic and how it's intended. And that can, yeah, that can suck.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you kind of dabbled in this, that you guys got down in the dumps on second encounter, but in longer day ones, it's easy for people to get frustrated at each other. What are some things you and your team do to prevent this?
That's a good question. I think I think you shouldn't. I mean, if you want to get like good, and I'm saying this as somebody who probably doesn't get the best day one placements. We've done okay here and there, but I think if you want to do like good, you definitely want to go in with people who are pretty level headed. I would
Mm-hmm.
honestly say I'm probably one of the people who's the least level headed on my team. So I know I can be a bit like bossy during day one. So I try and listen at least myself when people are like, Grant, gee, you need to chill out. Like, I'll take a step back and be like, okay, I'm being a bit too picky or too harsh on something. Um, but other than that, I like we've been pretty lucky to not have too many incidents in day ones and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's just kind of I think we've had times where people aren't understanding mechanics or call outs, and they're kind of being a bit they're a bit angry or whatever, or they're a bit stubborn. And so I think the best thing is just like in the moment, maybe rotate them off their role and just keep pushing forward and just make sure you're making progress. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that one because I mean, luckily we haven't had anybody freak out or do
Mm-hmm.
anything major during a day one.
For me, since I haven't had consistent teams up until these last 3 day ones, for me, I kind of set up a rule format where we're like, everyone hear each other out, and we can't get mad. We just got to hear everyone's ideas so we can get through this the fastest, because not one person's going to solve the whole raid for us. We got to work as a team.
Right.
And so I try to like just clear communication. If we keep a level head, we'll get through this faster. And so I try to push for just trying to stay calm and looking at it from a wide perspective. What can we do to continue forward instead of halting us by getting angry at each other?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I will say, I think one team, I mean, it's not like, I guess it doesn't pertain to the question, I guess, of longer day ones, people getting frustrated. But I do think what
Mm-hmm.
can help a lot of teams too is like with going in and practicing is understanding like where everybody kind of, I don't want to say ranks on your team, but like the roles that everybody's trying to play and what they can play best
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not butting heads. Cause I've seen other people in my clan when we put together other teams for day ones, like everybody kind of goes into the day one with a mentality that they're about to lead the squad. And then they
Mm-hmm.
start butting heads on mechanics. And then one person takes over, one person had the idea, but was afraid to say it. So I think just being comfortable with your team helps going in as well,
Oh
knowing what
yeah.
everybody's good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we look at that from a wide perspective and like take information from our speeds, like who should be doing what, like who should be on debuff, who should be focusing on speed parts of mechanics, or like
Yeah.
whatever it entails. And we kind of have like all that information set out and put out there. And we're like, okay, so if something like this comes up, then you're on this, and then this and that. And it's just like a whole chalkboard, the red strings and everything connecting the dots.
Yeah, you're tracking down the murderer. Yeah. No, I mean
Yeah.
that's a good point though that you made with speeds cuz like yeah, you obviously have like your skippers, you have people who are
Hmm.
doing more mechanical roles, things like that. So,
You just put them in their strengths and try and keep boosting the team as much as you can.
yeah.
All right, are we ready for that next question?
It's a hard question, man. It's a hard question. I
An
actually okay, so I didn't prepare a like a
answer
actual
for this one?
not like answer, but like obviously I know what I'd want in a raid in a day one and
Hmm.
stuff like that, but like I didn't go through and map any like mechanics out or anything like that.
All right, so let me put out the question here. If you were to make a raid, what would it look like?
Yeah, so okay, I think the first thing for the raid would be doing something different. I feel like right now the four encounter two boss is just like so stale. So, and I think there's been I don't know if have you seen leaks for Final Shape?
No, I haven't been paying attention
Okay.
to the leaks for
Okay,
Final
okay.
Shape
Well,
just yet.
okay, so I would say I would introduce potentially a boss fight that happens across multiple different encounters, which I think would be
Hmm.
really cool. Almost like kind of like a single encounter raid, but you're really just like you have multiple checkpoints. I guess it's still its own encounters, but a boss fight that happens over multiple encounters. After that, I would just say basically also introduce one puzzle type mechanic. I really, really wish that I was there to do day one last wish to see if I could have like figured out, you know, the Antumbra Penumbra. So I'd
Hmm.
love to have an encounter where you just have basically nothing to go off and you really have to sit there and figure things out yourself, which sounds like most encounters, but I feel like when you show up to like the first encounter in Root of Nightmares and you see this giant ball that you shoot and then the next node spawns in front of you, it's pretty self-explanatory what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So I love a mechanical encounter or a puzzle type encounter like that. And then after that, I would just say more encounters that have mechanics. I'm not always the biggest fan of boss fights. I
Hmm.
like mechanical encounters just because they're fun for reclears. When you're going for loot, farming, doing whatever. So I would probably throw in like two more of those,
Okay.
but also make
So,
sure they're different mechanically.
what kind of enemy type would you want to see in this raid? Ideally.
Dude, that's a hard one. My two favorite have always been Vex because I think like the science and like time travel stuff behind them is pretty cool.
Hmm.
But I hate fighting wyverns now. So I'd probably go with Hive. I just think Hive is just the coolest, like, you know, dark, mysterious type of enemy race that we have.
Yeah. I don't know. I have like this thing for fallen raids. I really enjoy them a
Okay.
lot, even though they're not like the best in the game. Like something just like clicks with me that I really enjoy them a lot for some reason, and it's just
What
like
are
been a track record for me.
that's actually a good point because it's only been Scourge and Wrath, right? That have been fallen. Is that accurate?
Scourge Wrath DSC.
Scourge Wrath DSC. Okay, I guess that's fair. I mean, maybe DSC aside, I think DSC is actually pretty iconic, especially with like
Hmm.
A tracks and the entrance is cool. But I think
Hmm.
Wrath and Scourge were both very iconic. Even if you didn't like how long or short they were, like I think they're two of the most like
Hmm.
respected raids that we had. Just
Yeah,
different.
definitely Hive in second place for me though. I enjoy the Hive raids. They're
Dude,
really
Hive
fun.
is just the lore is so cool. The
Hmm.
lore is cool, and I don't even like lore either. So
I like listening to the Book of Sorrows. It's such a good like tale, and like just hearing the Hive story. It's amazing.
I haven't
All
seen that.
right.
Is it like a Bife video?
Yeah, Bife has a whole video on it, but
Okay.
it basically tracks the three um, siblings, Savathun, Oryx, and Zeborath, and you hear their story and then how they got the worms, and then just
Okay.
goes on from there, and how they just conquered planets and all that, and then how Oryx became the Taken King. It's from the point of view of Oryx, I think, for most of it.
Okay.
I think part of it's also the worm from Savathun that
Part of
takes
that
part.
POV.
Yeah,
Oh. Okay. Okay.
because the worm talks to Savathun and guides her to go down into the deep and meet the worm gods. But that's the short of the story.
We need to
The
watch it, dude.
hive, the
We need to
hive
check it
become the
out.
hive, and then they conquer stuff, and then we're here. All right. So, what are some tips that you would give to players wanting to become endgame players?
The best tips I could give is obviously number one, just play the game and challenge yourself to newer and harder challenges. For me, I think my track record went from a casual person to obviously always wanting to raid. So I started raiding more. Once raids were easy, I got into like my first solo and solo flawless dungeon. That wasn't bad. Started getting into low mans, and then from low mans into speed runs. And then somewhere along the line, I was obviously trying to get better placements in my day ones. So
Hmm.
I think number one is just kind of have that like pipeline to follow of, taking it up a notch each and every time you have the opportunity to do something new. And then after that, I've always learned a lot from just watching other players. I used to watch speedruns a lot back in the day,
Hmm.
years before I ever did speedruns. That taught me a lot. I
Hmm.
used to watch people who were doing things that I wanted to do. I think I literally studied and copied Glad's entire run for
Oh my
solo flawless
god.
pit of heresy. And that's how I got solo flawless pit. So it's just doing that. That's all it is.
So funny thing about that, I actually before I got into speedrunning used to watch Glad's POV for Leviathan speedruns, and then I'd add
Okay.
that into my base gameplay when doing the raid.
It's it's crazy, yeah. I think something cool, just for example, like something I learned probably from Glad was just like the way he was doing rotation. One of the hard parts for solo falls pit is the conflux you need to stand under before it wipes you, or the totem, and then
Hmm.
putting the orbs in. Um, just watching how he would play and how he would like even swap his weapons and not always reload at certain points, um, and just prioritize things. You can learn a lot from somebody and just pick up from their gameplay. So
Hmm.
I think, yeah, number one, step up the challenges that you're doing, and then number two, also make sure you're watching people as you're doing that. And then I guess as a bonus, like added third thing, for some things you're obviously going to need to find new people to take it to
Hmm.
that next level, doing low man speed runs, etc. So make sure you're, I guess, comfortable
Networking.
meeting new people and people who are good at the game.
Hmm. Which can definitely be hard because a lot of people in the Destiny community are toxic, and some
Yeah,
are
that's a
really
fact.
chill. But
Yeah.
it's kind of hit or miss with whoever you meet, especially
Yeah,
if they're somewhat
there's gems
decent.
out there, dude.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, you touched a little on speedrunning. Now, what was the hardest piece of movement tech or just tech in general for you to learn?
I want to say I think it's still gonna be slipstreaming. I feel like slipstreaming is like if you ask somebody who can do probably everything, I feel like that would be the answer they say. I
Hmm.
think for slipstreaming, I learned for reference sparrow flying in probably 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
then slipstreaming took me like another 3 weeks after that. So that was definitely like the most I had to sit down, dedicate time to, and just be like, all right, I'm gonna do this like an hour today, 2 hours tomorrow, whenever I got the free time. I was doing it, learning it, and I think it took me around 3 weeks. And even after 3 weeks, I was still ass at it. So yeah, I would say I'm still learning how to get better at slipping as well. So
Yeah,
definitely
well,
slip
there's always
streaming.
room to improve on it. Like, there's so many things inside of the sparrow category that you can learn, like the tornado slip, the infinite slip. Like, there's so many different classifications of slip that
Yeah,
it's like overwhelming.
yeah,
So
that's fair.
I
I guess I should specify. Mine's the I like open slip, infinite slip.
yeah,
I feel like that one's
there's just so many different slips. Like, I feel like just saying slip streaming as the hardest tech for you to learn would be even just fine because there's so many different classifications.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't just put your finger on one and be like that one because you have to
Did
know different aspects of it.
nothing hurts your ego more than when you learn something like that, like slipping, and then you go into like four dash and you see a clip of somebody like slipping into an inverse slip back into a regular slip, but then they're doing like a slip skate, and you're just like, dude, like how? I don't know if
They
you've seen
they
like Avo and like
they're
other people.
different creatures in 4 dash. Like, they're
Dude,
so
it's
good at
insane.
slipping.
It's insane.
If SRL comes back, it's over for everyone.
It's game over. It's game over.
Bro, the 4 dash people are just gonna come in and just crush it.
Yeah, ranked SRL is literally
Hmm.
just going to be four dash as the top, like however many people are in their clan as
Yeah.
the top 100 players.
Now, okay, going from hardest, what was the easiest piece of movement tech for you to learn?
Easiest piece of movement tech. I mean, I could probably go with like some troll answer.
Hmm.
of something that I wouldn't really use much. But I would just say probably your typical like hunter skating, hunter lining has always been
Hmm.
pretty easy, I think, just because you can go in, learn the inputs, and you don't have to like sit there and wait for your well to come back each time. You could just keep spamming it, keep doing it. So
Hmm.
I think hunter skating probably with eager took me like 5 minutes to learn. With Worldline, which was when it first kind of came out,
Yeah.
probably took me like 15, 20 minutes. And then after I learned it, I made a video on it, you know. So I
Hmm.
think those techs are pretty easy. And I think it's a good thing too, because like people always ask me if I have macros for my skates, if I'm cheating when I do my skates, if
Hmm.
it's possible on console. And so like the good answer is yeah, it's possible everywhere. You don't need a macro. And it's pretty easy, but some people look for any excuse not to learn, men.
Yeah, that is true. I see people who are like, oh, I don't macro my ground line, but you see them like definitely macroing it. Like the inputs are so perfect, like frame perfect that
Dude, that
it's
grinds
like
my
it.
gears. I think ground skating should be absolutely banned in speeds right now, just
Yeah,
because even if
I
you have it
totally agree.
recorded with inputs,
Hmm.
the rate at which like a macro would be like super tight and like down to like the 5 ms range, which
Hmm.
is like gonna highly deviate if you're only recording 60 FPS or 50 FPS or 30 FPS. You know what I mean? You might not be able to tell from clip to clip that something like the timing is changing. So I feel like it's just so hard to verify, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like ground lining is just touchy in general for like if we were doing SRC rules.
Hmm.
But if you can pull it off consistently, be my guest. Go ahead and ground line because
People are
I feel like
demons.
I feel like it's not like as useful as well skating because in all settings that you're
No.
gonna most likely ground line, you're also most likely gonna have to well skate too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. There's been like some weird niche places you can do it, but like
Hmm.
without major time loss, I think you can just find a ledge nearby and hit the same line.
Yeah. So touching in on techs, let's move on to how did you get into speedrunning?
Yeah, so I said I always watched the person that I would always watch was I think he went by Granger and his YouTube channel was like
Ooh,
NR1
yeah,
Tracer EU or
Granger.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I would watch him a lot and just seeing the stuff that he was pulling off and obviously everybody else he was running with his was
Hmm.
just the POV I watched, but it just blew my mind. So I always wanted to get into it. I tried to convince the guys that I day one with to do a few runs.
Hmm.
We did Levy. We got like a 21-minute Levy clear years ago, which like that
Hmm.
was hype for us. We tried to do Spire after that, and then the team fell apart. And then I think around a year or two later is when we really got into actually running. So our first official run where it felt like we were actually like speed running and really trying to optimize stuff was Garden. And we did that, I think, season 18 or so, about like
Hmm.
6 months ago. So yeah, that was our first ever run.
Yeah, Levy was just something else. Having it every 6 weeks, it felt like a holiday
Yeah.
anytime it was around. Like
Would you
that
run
was
it
fun.
back then?
Yeah, I ran the first time I started running was Black Armory. So I've been running
Black Arm.
ever since
Okay.
then.
What
What
time?
really
What time did
caught
you get your levy down to?
I think we got it to like a 15-20, and we
Jeez.
almost had a sub 15, but right as soon as we got to baths, somebody had to get off. Like their power went
Oh,
out or something. Like they
yeah.
literally turned off their PC, and we're almost done with baths, and we're like, oh my god, this was paced for a sub 15, and it's the
That's
last day of
awful.
levy week ever, and so we're all just distraught. Like, no, this is forever set in stone.
Mental health's gone.
Yeah. But that's when I got into speedrunning Black Armory, and then it's just kind of stuck with me ever since. I've enjoyed every aspect of it. I like the mechanicals stuff about it, the speed
Yeah.
of it. Skips are where I really enjoy the most because like I like the different things you can do, like transferring your momentum with a well skate, like Garden's 3-4 skip, or
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched Gunner Hawk's POV in Deepstone, but the
Oh
skip
yeah.
that he does in Deepstone, there's just so many different cool things you can do. So I
Yeah.
feel
That
like
skip POV
skipping
is
is my
wild.
favorite thing.
Yeah, I will
So
say.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Well, one of my favorite things. I think the cool part about speedrunning is, and this is why like I would recommend anybody get into it. Like just for garden, like learning about tiny things, like even learning how to do zero sub and pull that off
Hmm.
was cool. And then you learn like when you're in that lane, if your ads spawn like left
Hmm.
first, they're gonna spawn one to the right of that, and then so just like tiny little details, getting a better understanding for raids is a pretty cool, fresh perspective to have, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, and it helps you learn other raids too, because there's certain
Yeah,
aspects that transfer over. Like majority of raids, ad clear like will help you speed up encounters in most settings. Like second encounter garden, third encounter deep stone, first encounter crown, so on and so forth. There's so many like lists of things that ad clear will speed up an encounter that you could go
yeah,
on about, and it just teaches you different aspects of the game that you wouldn't know in a normal raid.
absolutely.
So you already kind of said what your first Destiny speedrun was that you did, so I'm gonna go over how did you get into Lowmans?
Lowmans, I'm trying to think when I got into them. I know I'll say this. I know my first ever lowman was a trio Vogue back in D1. We thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for D2, where we actually like seriously got into lowmans, I think it was my buddy Rec who got me into lowmans. We did so we picked him up going into DSC as like our sixth man for our day one team. And then
Mm-hmm.
either after that or before that, just as prep, we started doing stuff. And I'm trying to think back to what we did first. I know we did duo Last Wish and duo Queen's Walk, and I'm pretty sure that was our first one ever, which is funny because it was a duo, but it wasn't that bad. Or duo Riven, legit, sorry, and duo Queen's
Mm-hmm.
Walk. And then after that, we ended up doing the full duo Crown of Sorrow. So I think it was literally Rec who I play with coercing me into doing Lowmans, and then that just like spread to me doing them all, doing them flawlessly, stuff like that. So yeah,
Okay. So since you've done Lowmans and you've done speedruns, could you ever see yourself doing a Lowman speedrun in the future?
I could definitely see myself doing it in the future. I've been watching Rowan run a ton of trio root speeds right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's running that. That just looks super fun. It looks like a, not to say casual run. Like obviously you have to be very good to get the times they're getting, but it just looks, it doesn't look like Garden where you have tighter damage phases and stuff like that. It looks a
Mm-hmm.
lot more casual. So I think I'd probably start with something like that. But watching him run and after doing six mans for root, it kind of has me wanting to do a trio run of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested, but at the same point, I'm like, maybe. I don't know yet. Like, I'm I kind of want to, but I kind of don't want to at the same point for me for raids specifically. Dungeons, I could definitely see it since they're much shorter in comparison to raids, but I feel like
Yeah.
raids just doing them back to back low mans, maybe conversation could get boring. Maybe you were doing duo speeds, you just have to find something to chat about while you're running.
I would never touch duo speeds, dude. That sounds awful. Also, like Zemo doing low man flawless speeds. I
Mm-hmm.
guess with fourth horseman it makes sense, but just that's insane to me.
Yeah,
But
I would lose my mind in a solo speed run of a raid. I'd be like,
yeah,
I need a friend. I'm doing everything
I am
alone.
I am on the same page of with you though. Like I would probably rather, and I don't know if you've done every raid so far for a six man, but I'd rather
Mhm.
do those first because I do like the learning process of speeds more than
Yeah, yeah. I
the
I enjoyed
challenge.
doing all raids other than the challenge. Like I want to just see how fast you can push something, like what you can bring
Yeah,
it to. That's my
that's
main
fair too.
like motivation in speedrunning is how far can we push this?
Yeah, yeah, and with trios you're not going to be getting those like times as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you could see how far you can push it with less people, but at the same point, it's kind of cool to see what you can do with six men. Like, there's a 7 minute difference right now, or a 6 minute difference in Root of Nightmares.
Yeah, between
So,
3 and 6. Yeah,
yeah. So, like, it's obvious that the 3 man is going to be slower, but just how much slower is the question.
yeah, that's fair.
All right. So, how do you maintain a sense of enjoyment and fun while engaging in repetitive endgame activities that you've cleared many times?
I guess for Lowmans, and this is something I've always said, like on stream and stuff, because people have asked me if I'm gonna run stuff back. I tend not to run that stuff back,
Hmm.
like Lowmans too often, unless I'm helping somebody out. Which is nice because I think when you run Lowmans multiple times, they're stale. Speeds though, I think it's fresh, and it's always been fresh for me because you're just pushing towards a better time. And
Hmm.
there's always something, at least for me in the run, that I'm like, okay, I did this bad last time, or we did this bad as a team. I want to see how good this looks and how cool it feels when we get that consistently and then get that in a run. So I think for me, I like when I'm doing speeds and it's the same thing over and over again, it doesn't feel too repetitive. And I
Hmm.
guess part of the things that helps with that is we run with a bunch of goons. So if it's a stale night, we're just laughing, having a good time. We don't take it too serious. We're not screaming at each other. We're not going for like records or anything. So it's usually pretty light, and that makes it fun as well for like the whole group.
Okay, just having fun while playing, even if it's
That's pretty much
repetitive.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna skip past some of these questions and go to this one down here at the
Okay.
bottom. How do you handle Destiny burnout or fatigue of playing Destiny?
That's a good question. I think the best thing is either, I mean, it's obviously just take a break. For me, I have to
Hmm.
like keep playing to a certain extent because right now I'm doing content full time, so I have to make sure I'm staying in the know, make sure I understand the meta. Obviously, can put out builds or videos every week or however often I need to upload.
Hmm.
Um, so there's going to always be like that level of needing to stay on the game. But even right now, things are stale. It's end of the season. I'm waiting for Season of Deep to come out. We just finished up doing Root of Nightmares runs, so there's not much going on in the game for me right now. So I've been playing a lot of just other games. I really do like the looter shooter genre, so I've been playing Wonderlands, which I know a lot of people hate, but I just picked that up for the first time with a buddy. Did a Borderlands 3 playthrough recently, so we're doing that, trying to push towards the end game, and then a bunch of us are also playing Division 2, so that's gonna get some new content, and it's pretty similar to Destiny. So honestly, it's just Destiny 2.0, but just finding new stuff to play is all I really do.
Yeah, just take a break. That's all it is. And
Yeah.
that's currently what I'm doing right now. Since I'm kind of actually waiting for Diablo 4 myself, because I've
Okay.
played Diablo all my life. I've been playing a bit of Diablo 3 and getting into that more. So while Destiny's been stale for me, I've just taken a break, sat back, and was like, I'm gonna just chill and I'm gonna play me some Diablo because it's one of my childhood games that I played when I was younger.
Yeah, you have to do it. What other games do you play other than like Diablo?
Um, So me and my friend Jerky, we like to play a bunch of horror games. So we'll just scour the Steam market for multiplayer horror games, and I'm like, okay, we'll play this one, and then we just play the world's worst horror game ever, and then we're
Well,
just
well,
like, that's
let me
great.
test your knowledge. Let me test your knowledge. Let me see. We do the exact same thing, dude. I don't know how more people do that don't do this, but okay, let me see. Have you ever played Backrooms games?
Yep.
Backrooms. So we played Backrooms Escape together. We
Yeah, we
played.
played
There's a
that
big
one.
game. We played Devour. Have you played Devour?
Yeah. We've played Devour. Have you played Pacify?
Pacify?
Yeah.
No. What is this? Is this good?
I don't even remember. We
How
were
do you
so
spell it?
lost in the game. Pacify.
Pacify. Oh no, I've not played this. Okay, I need to add this to the
Okay.
list,
What about Somewhere in the Shadow?
dude. I haven't played that either.
I'm
Somewhere
telling
in the
you,
shadow.
we find the most random horror games and we just play it.
I need to add this to the list too.
What about
Um,
Forewarned?
I think I've played Forewarned.
It's
I
the
think I
one where you go
have.
like to the tombs, the mummy stuff, and all
Yeah,
that.
we played that. That one, I think we returned it after a bit because like if we don't like it in a few hours, we'll just like return it
Mm-hmm.
because we know we're not gonna play it again. That one was cool for like the first run, but we didn't like get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty mid, but yeah, we just go through a bunch of horror games and we just play them, even if they're bad.
Um,
We try to play them.
No, the bad ones are good too. Labyrinthine is a
Mm-hmm.
good one too. If you want another one,
You gotta send
those
that
are
to me
good.
because now I want to play that. I have not played that one yet.
Labyrinthine is good, and it's like the nice part is, I like ones with like puzzles too, so that obviously like you're gonna shit bricks here
Yeah.
and there, but then you have like that sense of accomplishment. So that one's good for that.
Mhm. Something in the Shadow is very great for puzzles. It's very heavy puzzle
Okay,
solving. That's
okay,
what
okay.
really like hooked me because I actually really enjoy that game. Me and my friend have beaten it like 3 or 4 times now, and we just really enjoy it because although the puzzles stay the same, it's really fun trying to refigure it out after you forgot it after like two to
After you
three
forgot it,
months.
yeah. That's like Labyrinthine. Yeah. There's like puzzles like that, yeah. Because we
Hmm.
ran it back another time after like they did a massive update and we forgot half the stuff. So yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one. I need to add that to. I need to make sure. Which one was that? Did you say
something in the shadows.
something in the shadows? Okay, sweet. Okay, sorry.
No, we're all good. Okay, now instead of getting sidetracked on horror games, what are your thoughts on a new player's experience getting into Destiny?
Um, in terms of thoughts, what do you mean? Like, how do I think the new
Like,
player experience is,
yeah,
or
pretty
am I
much.
a fan of? Oh, okay. I think it's pretty bad. So the only concept of the new player experience that I really have, because I've just been playing for so long and
Hmm.
the game's changed so much, and I haven't been doing the new player experience each
Hmm.
time. The only sense of understanding I have is like watching like a Swetsicle video when he'll do like the full game in like 24 hours or whatever. So
Hmm.
in my opinion, from people that have gotten in the game that we've also helped a bit, I think it's pretty bad right now. I really wish it was better. I think the main reason to play any game like this, I think, is just the end game. So I
Hmm.
think Bungie could probably do a better job of just like getting people to that end game, whether it's just like mods that they need to get, leveling up their guardian rank quicker, whatever that might be. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think if I had to guess, people probably get turned off towards the game because it feels so grindy. And I know a lot of like people like Shroud playing when Lightfall came out had that issue and stuff like that. There's just so much to do before you get to the fun stuff like raids and dungeons. So I wish they kind of got you into those activities a bit earlier, gave you some like meta loadouts to run straight away and stuff. But I
Yeah,
don't know. It's a hard thing to balance.
yeah. For me, I think the new player experience is awful as well. I tried to get my
Yeah.
girlfriend to play Destiny, and she was so lost the whole time. And I was like, "Yeah, you got to go here, and then you got to go here, and then you got to do this, and then you got to get this, and then you got to do this." And she was like,
Yeah.
"Ah, there's so much things." Whereas
Yeah. Which is funny too,
for
because
consistent players like us, we just don't have all that overwhelming things to do in the game.
yeah, it's literally
Uh,
get on, do a raid for fun,
mhm.
do a GM if you need some like golf balls, farm artifice armor. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's it.
So, what are your long-term I messed up what I was saying. What are your long-term goals as a Destiny player? Is there a goal you are trying to reach as a player?
Dude, honestly, looking back, it's kind of crazy because I feel like I've reached all the long-term goals that I've had, at least back then, like some of the more obtainable ones. I think obviously maybe getting like a world record would be cool here, like here or there for a speed run, but I don't think I'm up to the standard that a lot of other teams are at. And us getting like any record would probably just be a bit more of luck, right place, right time when a new strat got discovered.
Hmm.
But I would definitely like to push still for better times because I do think a lot of the runs that we've done could be a lot better. We just haven't had the opportunity to run consistently due to people's schedule or whatever other reasons. So I definitely like to push for better times for speeds. Um, I've got all the low-mans and low-man flawlesses out, so I'd probably like to get into solo content here or there. Um, and then one big thing will always just be pushing for better day one placements. Obviously, it's
Hmm.
hard because you only have one that you can go into every 6 months, once a year, if you're looking for like a new non-reprised raid. So I'd really like to get to the point where we can just like maintain a top 50 placement because I think our
Hmm.
team's capable of it. We just mess up a lot of simple stuff here or there, or get caught up on one encounter, like second in Ron, like we just did. So I'd like to really push for that as well.
I feel like those are very good goals. I feel kind of similar in that sense. I want to push for better placements in day ones. I
Yeah.
feel like Root was our best placement that I've had so far in any raid, which was 149, and
Okay. Yeah. You beat us.
we beat Dado. He was like 153 or something, and that was
Yeah.
like the first point where I was like, "Woo, let's go!" Because Dado's the second place hero, as everyone knows.
Yeah. Their team's insane.
Yeah, so I think I want to strive to get as high up on a day one placement before like Destiny 2 kicks the bucket,
Yeah.
and just
Same.
kind of like
Yeah.
set that as a goal. and of course keep improving as a player, learn all the things that I can and continue to learn more because I feel like I know a lot about the game, but I feel like there's more I can keep learning because there's always something that I can be improving on at any point.
Dude, that's actually a really good point, and that adds to it's crazy because like you'll just keep seeing one thing I want to kind of add to my list of like sparrow techs is trying to get down slip skating, but just
Hmm.
like I feel like as soon as you open a door to like some new level of like movement tech or whatever else it is, there's like 100 other doors that become open that you can like go down the rabbit hole of like let me learn this, let me learn that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just never ending. Like the things that people come up with, it you question how they come up with it, and just keep learning and learning and learning.
Yeah.
And that's all Destiny is just improving upon yourself and just getting better at the game. I feel like overall people should strive to do better than what they've done before.
I agree. I feel like that's a dying mentality in this game, and I will never understand why. But yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Hmm. Well, it's been fun talking with you and like discussing all these different things about Destiny, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about it. Um, so to bring this all to a close, thanks for coming here and having this chat with me and answering these questions and giving people the insight on some of your viewpoints about the game and things to improve on and just how you see yourself as a player in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, seriously, thank you for reaching out. The questions you had were obviously insanely good, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's hard because you're like endgame player, so like you could just hit kind of the nail on the head of a lot of like more niche, more in detail questions for like the end game of Destiny. So once again, thank you. Super fun talking to you. Super fun and nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. This is the first time I've ever like been in a VC with you and not like
Yeah,
typed to you on Discord. So it was great meeting you, and hopefully we can maybe do something again in the future.
yeah, I'm down. Let me know.